This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm your host, Sarah Harnisch. With me, Alliance Defending Freedom's Chelsea Youmann. We're awaiting one final case at the U.S. Supreme Court. There's a couple about to come down, but one really big case, and you're right in the middle of it, as usual. Tell me what's going on.
Yes, we are. We anticipated at the end of June is typically when the Supreme Court will release their bigger decisions. The decisions we're all waiting for. They have a lot of consequence, and so sometimes they've got concurrences or dissents they're drafting, but often they like to release those final decisions, and then it is the end of their term, and they get to go home after all their hard work. And so that big decision is the B.P.J. case, where we are, on behalf of our athletes, we represent so many incredible young girls and women, and then in partnership with the state of Idaho, we are challenging allowing boys and girls locker rooms. They are trying to protect those states. Are doing an incredible job protecting girls and their sports, but also just saying we're going to acknowledge what is truth, which is there are only two sexes. We want women and girls to be able to compete and win and have trophies and have locker room spaces that are private. It's good common sense. And we also want them to be able to go to tournaments and overnight trips without having to worry about sharing beds or showers or their most personal spaces with a member of the opposite sex that makes them deeply uncomfortable. We are hopeful that the Supreme Court will rule on a couple of issues. First and foremost, that Title IX defines the definitions of sex have never changed. Our biology is real. There are women, there are men, there are boys, there are girls, and that's it. And then we also hope that they will decide the case on equal protection grounds. And these are really for women, for girls, but also for the safety and security of everybody in schools, which is what schools should really be worried about.
What would happen if you lose?
If we lose, we start the fight again in a different way. I don't think we're ever going home on these issues when it comes to what is true. We're going to always advocate for truth. We know that the Constitution should be immovable and supports us on these issues. And so we'll evaluate where we're at, but we know over 20 states have protected women and girls in their locker rooms and private spaces through their schools. So I think we're in the majority, it's certainly our hope.
There's a story on Fox News that broke yesterday on Title IX, and the headline reads, Biden officials circumvented a court order in Title IX cases, including males in girls' sports. What's that all about?
Yes, this is really an astounding situation. When I was floored when I read this personally, because it implicates so much. But I'll start with the background. The background is, you may remember, in 2021, the Biden administration said in order for any schools to receive Title IX funds, and that is getting school lunches, funding for sports, Title IX is very extensive, that they have to define sex by gender identity. And what that means is without, by the way, religious exemption. So they were trying to exclude parochial schools, religious schools. Really it's going to be Christians who have these traditional values and beliefs, some biblical worldview of how God designed us and that he designed us good and he did not design us with mistakes. And the Biden administration said we're going to try to exclude those schools on this basis from obtaining any funding for things like locker rooms, school lunches, sporting events, and they lost. They lost this issue. We had a multi-state challenge to the Biden administration saying that, again, sex is defined by your biological sex, and we got an injunction against this Title IX definition change that the Department of Education tried to have. And we found out, thanks to a very brave and courageous whistleblower who came out to the Office of Special Counsel, that the Biden administration ignored that court order. They ignored the injunction. And for me, this has a lot of deeper importance than just, the Biden administration is being very liberal and, of course, trying to really come after Christian schools and exclude them from funding. The deeper implication is what you have is an executive branch department ignoring the judiciary branch's orders. It's a separation of powers issue in the face of a court order. In the civil context, if it was just us as citizens, they would call that civil disobedience to ignore a court order. But when our government does it, they got away with it. Nobody knew. And so I think it speaks volumes to the absolute disregard for law and order that the Biden administration had.
Let's shift gears. You guys are fighting religious freedom cases all around the country. And there was testimony Wednesday about Texas and the passing of their abortion drug trafficking bill last summer. Texas giving a status update on what's happening. So what's going on there?
Yes, Sarah, this is an issue that is near and dear to my heart. I have been a pro-life advocate for most of my career, and I was very honored to get to work on this bill. This is a bill called the Women and Children Protection Act, HB 7, and Texas passed it last summer. It was the first bill in the nation to use really ingenious legal techniques. Another attorney is really the architect of this bill. And he came up with this idea for how to overcome out-of-state shield laws. 22 states and the District of Columbia, after Roe was overturned, passed shield laws that said their citizens can never be sued, no matter who they hurt, how many children they end the lives of, how many women they harm with sending abortion drugs, that you cannot be sued in a blue state like New York, for instance. So even though Texas was able to get a court order against Dr. Carpenter in New York, the New York county clerk never filed the order because she didn't have to, thanks to shield laws. HB 7 in Texas is the first bill designed not only to overcome an out-of-state shield law, but to stop the flow of abortion drugs into the state. And it's a landmark bill. It's a really incredible bill. Unfortunately, it was watered down a little bit on the House side, and the result of that has been drug manufacturers and internet websites are still producing the drugs and shipping them everywhere, and the websites still stand. And so there are cases in Texas arising. We know more cases are coming this year. But the goal is really to communicate to the legislature by way of an update through this hearing to testify and say the bill is working, there is a lawsuit, we're going to push that shield law issue. But at the end of the day, until we hold abortion drug manufacturers liable, strict liability is what we want, and until we ask internet service providers to have a duty to pull down these websites where women can order drugs, it's going to continue to be a very difficult issue to address. And so I was able to testify to the committee, who is very, very receptive to doing what they can to protect as many kids as they can in Texas, and of course their mothers. It's not best for moms to be by themselves without physician oversight, taking very, very serious procedure like abortion. And heard testimony from women who did take abortion drugs and had horrible experiences and traumatic experiences, and they're really devastating to hear those stories. And if you've got questions, if you've had an experience at a school or faced discrimination, or maybe you made the choice to have an abortion and took the abortion drugs and were harmed by them, or maybe someone forced you to take them, you have rights. And you can go to adflegal.org, and we are here to help you and point you in the right direction. We are nonprofit legal services, so we truly don't take a dime. Free pro bono representation to defend your rights.
Why stay at the forefront of cases like these? The Supreme Court, Title IX, states' rights, Texas's ability to say no to mail-order abortion drugs. There's so many cases in so many states. Do you feel like you're making an impact?
If we don't engage, who will as believers? And I don't mean we even just at Alliance Defending Freedom. I mean wholesale as believers. Anytime we abandon an arena, whether it's political, whether it's serving in our communities, church, schools, that's how school districts get overrun and start allowing boys to compete in girls' sports. It's because Christians have not pursued those positions. And so for us, it's going to be a never-ending challenge. I certainly hope we work ourselves out of a job, but if we are working until the Lord calls us home one way or another, it's going to be an absolute honor. It's our calling in life to do that, to be in these spaces.